Yeah, I've got Bjorn, guys. He was on the live stream earlier. He's here. Please, have a seat. Yeah, microphone is on, I think. Just keep it kind of close so I can hear you properly.
How's that?
Yeah, that sounds good, right? You guys can hear him? Yeah, welcome Bjorn, guys. So here's our camera. So come a bit closer.
All right.
Yeah, nice to have you.
Cool. Yeah. Nice to meet you.
Yes. Yeah, so I'm Woody. This is Bjorn. He was one of the lead or class designer. Can you explain it real quick again? What you're doing exactly?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, kind of the primary class designer.
Primary class designer. Okay, nice. Yeah, so we saw him earlier on the live stream, and you already talked a lot about how the class works, and a lot of the uniques and items. And I was actually going to ask a bunch of these questions.
Absolutely.
But
yep, that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, but you already explained a lot of things, so we're kind of doing it maybe with chat. We have the chats here.
Sure.
So you can also see it for yourself if you want to pick something up or so. But yeah, guys, if you have any questions for our devs here, then go ahead. So, but I guess, how much time do you have? Do you have any schedule?
Honestly, as much time as you need. I don't want to take your whole time though.
Yeah, it's gonna keep blasting a little bit while we're talking, so I can still show off something. But I can also switch maybe if there's something coming up. But maybe I can just talk about my own experience real quick and maybe chime in. But personally, after playing the Spiritborn, I have a few hours now on the class. I really like the mixing and matching. That's the best part about it.
Awesome.
And I think you've done a pretty good job with that. And this is just the early game. So I'm kind of curious about, we don't have paragons and the glyphs. And if there's anything you can share about, what is the ideas for the later stages in the game, where what kind of things can we expect basically?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. We're not talking about the Paragon specifically right now.
Yeah, I don't know if I need nose or so, but
yeah, absolutely. I mean, really, the goal is just to let you guys go wild and mix and match everything kind of to your heart's content. Really focused on trying to make as many items and stuff to just give you guys the tools you need to solve whatever problems you want, in kind of whatever way makes sense for you. Honestly, there's probably 100 builds I can't even think of off the top of my head. So, just go wild with it, kind of break the game, see what you can do.
Yeah, I was trying some kind of funny stuff earlier, right when I logged in, and everyone was already oh my god, this looks crazy. So I was doing the Razor Wings with the Jaguar ultimate, and then there's the passive where you can spam the Razor Wings with the ultimate. So that was kind of funny. So, but did you actually personally come up with these ideas? I'm not sure how this works in a team.
Sure.
Do you have different people working? Okay, you do the Jaguar stuff, you do the Gorilla stuff, or how does that actually?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, kind of the way it works is usually once we have kind of the core idea for the class, we sit down with the entire Diablo team and we do just massive brainstorm, just to kind of be hey, what do you think, if this is the class, what do you think you're going to see? And just kind of come up with every idea that we can and then kind of collect it all and see what the best ones are, kind of see which ones are most intuitive for everyone, kind of yeah, the gorilla needs to smash something. All right, we'll make a skill that does that, right? And then, yeah, from there we kind of move on into prototyping. We made probably, I don't know, 60 or some skills just to see what felt fun, what was cool, what fit. And this class was special because we knew kind of from the start we wanted it to be able to hybridize at least. You don't have to, but we wanted it to at least work. So originally when we were starting to prototype the skills, the first things we started doing was okay, let's make a couple of Jaguar skills, a couple of Eagle skills, and just play them together, and then make just the next craziest thing we could think of, Gorilla Centipede, and just be does that feel like a distinct play style? Does it feel fun? And so yeah, from there we just kind of ultimately kind of narrow it down to which skills we actually want to ship with, and here you are.
Okay, yeah, really cool. And there was a question here. What about the other classes? I mean, have you guys actually considered, okay, what is already in the game? Where's too much overlap maybe? Or will this make maybe outclass other things? Or how is that actually?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it was really important for us, part of Spiritborn kind of with this mix and matching was for us to be able to hit on stats and stuff that we hadn't gotten to do as much before. We're trying a couple different things out with Thorns, trying out some stuff with Block, trying a couple of things that we know that are sort of this open space.
By the way, this is what I meant earlier. What I was
there saying. You go. Yeah, with the triple and the free cast. Yep.
Yeah, you've done that yourself.
I'm sure it's fine, and no notes. Yes, I'm aware of that one. We'll keep working on that. We'll make sure that works and doesn't melt servers or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, we're always looking for places that either classes haven't gotten to explore before, as well as just like, I mean, we're developing the class alongside the live game in parallel. So like there are learnings coming back and forth between the two, kind of at all times. So like I wouldn't necessarily say it's meant to like replace anything or anything like that, right? Like we're always crossing the learnings back and forth. I think like Rogue just got like a dash added to I want to say like Flurry or something, right? Like you can see some crossover there between like kind of what we're doing on Spiritborn and kind of what we're maybe adding back to other classes, kind of like what we're finding is fun as we kind of experiment. Like I said, like we made all these skills and like they're not all going to be in the game, but maybe we can add them other places.
Yeah, or maybe some of them might come back as like maybe some unique effect, I imagine, or whatever,
Exactly.
right? So you have like a kind of like a, you know, something to draw from, I guess, at least. So that's kind of cool, yeah.
Yeah.
So how long have you been working on the Spiritborn? Like when did it actually start? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, we've been working on it since prior to launch, so like a couple of years now about.
Couple of years.
Yeah.
Okay. So actually, like you already knew from like long time ago what would be the class, and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like back then, right? Like as I kind of said, like that was like very early concept phase, very high level. Like, what is this going to be, right? And so, like over the last year or so, it's continued to like refine and turn into something. So it's been quite the journey.
Yeah, it definitely looks like you have been doing a lot of like this, you know, fine tuning on like the animations. They look crisp, and you know, it's like well, you know, thought out, I think. And like, you know, like these combos they can do. So it definitely comes together as like a complete package, I feel, and this is like kind of cool to see.
Absolutely. That's what we're going for.
Okay, let me see what some other questions maybe from chat so I can pick some of those up. People really seem to enjoy having you here on the stream, by the way, so
Sure.
that's nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, we haven't really seen you in like any of the other streams, right? So usually, I guess you were just like in the background working on this.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we've been back in the background, kind of working on the expansion, you know, alongside live. You know, we'll play test each other's stuff and everything. But yeah, we got to ship, and then we were like, all right, we go kind of hide in a room again for a while. So it's nice to get to reveal it all finally.
Yes, that's funny. Spiritborn. You like that?
Yep.
Cool nickname.
I can see that. I can see that one. Yep.
Do people call you like that?
I've heard that a couple times. Yeah, it's
Okay.
pretty decent.
Okay, people are asking, can we expect more Aztec military weaponry and armor down the line? Yeah, so there was clearly some inspiration from Aztec culture and maybe other cultures. And you kind of just made like your own like mix of that, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the artists and the entire team, they draw. I mean, even the class, its fighting styles, kind of. I think Nick mentioned like it's drawing from like a lot of different places, a lot of different like inspiration sources. Like nothing like specifically one or the other, but yeah, kind of that mixture is kind of what we're going for.
Did you also have like inspiration from other classes from other games? Like a lot of people are saying like, oh, this looks like the monk, or oh, this is like also Witch Doctor. And then we also have Diablo 4, where it's like, oh, this is kind of like Rogue with the dashing and the rushing strike, and then we have the druids. Like, what are they doing now? And like they have the spirits. So it's like this kind of like overlap between a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, it's trying to hit like a high mark, right, of being something with a lot of different permutations, a lot of different combinations, and like as we've kind of been working on the classes and we've kind of figured out kind of what works, what's fun, and like trying to figure out like new things we can add in with all of that combination has been really interesting. And like really what we're trying to do is like not necessarily completely reinvent the wheel, but sort of like add something that mixes and matches in a new way, kind of as an archetype that will allow you guys to almost kind of create your own class in a sense. It's kind of what we're shooting for.
Yeah, I kind of like how you also have like repurposed existing mechanics in the game. For example, I talked about this earlier, but there's like this, you know, combination between crits and poison. Yep. Or poison and thorns. Yeah. And you know, you can do like active thorns now, which wasn't really a thing before that. And you know, like, was that something that you like? Is just kind of like developed like as you're thinking, okay, what do we do with the class, or was it something that you like kind of set out to do?
Yeah,
to like try to make some of these like, you know, break up the existing like mechanics.
Exactly. Like, yeah, I mean, like, you know, at the end of the day, like very high level, you know, Diablo, you're just killing things, right? You're killing these demons and like adding the layers and the depth to that, right? We're not necessarily trying to create entirely new mechanics. We've added a couple, right, with Ferocity and Resolve, but even those are like, you know what damage reduction is, you know, that sort of thing. So like thinking about like what we can make that's still sort of intuitive and makes sense, but like trying to take stuff in different ways. And like, I think I talked about it a little on stream, like, you know, thinking in terms of like the guerrilla is all about protection, that sort of thing, and like there are different defensive layers kind of in our game. It doesn't all have to be damage reduction. It can be barrier, it can be dodge, it can be all these sorts of things. And sort of thinking about like each of the spirits like really like led us to like kind of these almost like suites of like stats that we could think about, and thinking like, well, like when I add, like this stat to that stat, when I mix them together, like how does like the characteristic of like the centipede mix with the thorns from the gorilla? Like how would they work with that mechanic differently that would let you sort of play with it in another way? As well as like, honestly, some fun things that are just like, you try to add, dodge and thorns together, and you're like, when you dodge, you don't actually get hit, so you don't actually deal thorns, and you're suddenly like, I guess I need to solve that actually, so that it works.
Aspect for that, right?
Yep. Yeah. There's a specific aspect for that where it's simultaneously making those mechanics work together at all, but also making like a bonus out of it. So Spiritborn had a lot of kind of those discoveries where it was like, yeah, we have to change a couple things up so that this kind of works. Even like the poison thorns aspect was a little sense of like, we want the centipedes to sort of be semi-omnipresent and sort of epicenter playstyle. And like, part of that is like, maybe you don't necessarily want to be getting hit. You want to be maybe sort of more mid-range. And so it's like, that doesn't really work with thorns if you have to get hit. So like, if we can give you a way to apply that thorns and still like stat into that, that's kind of what we're looking at with like all the hybridization.
There's a question about the alts. Also something I noticed about the ultimates is they're all pretty heavily like damage themed. Like like we have like certain alts that are kind of like defensive or utility, like for example deep freeze on a Sorg or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Or Inferno. And then you have like damage ultimates. And at least so far, I have to say this is kind of a risky move.
Sure.
Because damage ultimates have not really worked out in what we have seen so far in Diablo 4. So how are you trying to make sure that this is not going to be a repeat of that?
Yeah, like each of the ultimates, we want it to deal damage. We need it to deal damage because, you'll find that like even like the ones that don't deal damage, like they often also don't get used as well. Like really the things that we found that were successful with ultimates, if anything, was less about like if it does damage, if it adds an effect, and more about like because it has like a longer cooldown, how we can at least like extend the value that you get it from it, whether or not it lasts longer, whether or not you can reset it, those sorts of things. And so like the secondary effects, the upgrades, those sorts of things that we're adding on is really where we're looking to add like the utility to each of these spirits, because we want them to come in, we want the giant spirit to smash some enemies to death, but like, adding on like different effects onto it, whether it's making stuff vulnerable or that sort of thing, is really important. Another part of the thing, kind of the equation that we're working with, you might have noticed in the tree, there's like an entire like sub-tree of passives.
I really like this cluster of passives.
Yeah,
like,
so
just the layout is already kind of cool.
Exactly. I mean, it's like it's a skill tree, right? But like a little mini one, and that's sort of the another key to it for us of like, hey, we really wanted these ultimates. Like we don't want you to not use the coolest looking thing, that pays off the spirit. And so like giving you as many ways to really customize and like add stuff onto your ultimates is like really important. And so that's what part of that cluster is there for. I think there's a unique that adds even more skill tags onto them. They also have the added benefit of each of the ultimates has the spirit tags on them. So like all the things that you're hooking into with your spirit tags, like to amplify skills and these sorts of things, they'll also apply to your ultimates. So they don't get like set off kind of on the side with like waiting for like some bonus to a specific ultimate to make it work. So it adds a little bit of extra customization to it. And we're also working on other ways that I can't talk about, but that might help the damage scale a little better for them.
Okay, that's really good news. Is that something that will apply to other classes as well, or is it Spiritborn specific?
That will be a class-wide thing.
Okay, so it's a class thing.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, in general, we want people to feel good about using their ultimates. So that is a problem that we are constantly thinking about and trying to sort of help improve in the game.
Okay. I mean, it's also totally fine to make builds without ultimates, I guess.
Yep.
So this is actually something I like about D4 as well. It's like, I hear a lot of people always say like, oh man, I want an ultimate button, like give everyone an ultimate or so. But I kind of like that you can have the choice between having one or not, or which one and so on. So it's just kind of like a scalability issue that a lot of these alts have.
Yeah, the scaling's always, scaling, it's always a tricky problem. And yeah, I mean, I love the fact that you've got multiple ways to invest in them, kind of with this class is what we're going for.
Yeah, that's cool. Are we guys maybe also considering to, like, for example, add more spiritual class at some point in the future? Is that something that's even like on the menu at all, or is it just like, okay, those 4 exist now and that's it basically?
I mean, I don't have anything to announce for another Spirit. I mean, at this point, we've got 4. That's already, 6 permutations plus the mono builds. Like, that's like 10 builds already out of the gate. So it's a lot to add a whole Spirit to it. But there's definitely cool things we could do. I don't know, like make shadow versions of each of them or something, right? But like, that's definitely not a thing we're looking at doing at this moment. This is really, these 4 are primary ones, and that's kind of what we're going with.
Okay, we just reached like a pretty interesting boss fight here.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, I was just like pressing a button. I'm playing Gorilla, so I can't die, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, there you go.
But I like the boss design as well. I guess you were not really involved in that, but
yeah, I mean, they did some crazy things with this one. Like the way it moves and the way everything is animated is honestly incredible.
Mm-hmm. It very much reminds me of like Elden Ring. Like there's a lot of these like weird tentacle bosses and whatever. So that's kind of like the vibes I got from killing this boss the first time. But yeah, what, that looks sick. Yeah, exactly. This boss is, it's probably some campaign boss if I had to guess. Okay, he's actually blasting me though. What was the thinking behind the triple attack combos that you have built in the class? It's not just the basic attacks, right? But you also have it from the key passive, for example.
Yep.
So, like, maybe you can talk about that.
Yeah, in general, that was going for, like, we really wanted to hit, like 2 key things, like being empowered by the spirits. You kind of get that, obviously, with the ultimates and the incarnate skills, that sort of thing. And the basics, we really wanted to let more of the sort of martial arts shine through. So having those sort of 3-hit combos was, like, a thing that we've liked previously. We thought it felt really good. And sort of like then taking that and sort of spreading it across the rest of the class. Like, we don't necessarily want to make you like always do like a 3-hit combo, but sort of like having that be like a strong backbone for various effects was sort of a nice resonance that kind of worked with the class.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this also the boss fight here looks really cool. I like this one.
It's awesome.
Need like an Uber version of this. Okay. Well, guys, you have any questions out of the notch here? I'm trying to catch up a little bit on the chat, so while playing, I can't really read everything. Yeah, someone's asking, why did the team choose other animal-based class? Because you already had a druid, I guess. It's like, why do you have another one?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, part of this is Eleni kind of talked about the way it relates to the lore, the way the sort of the zone and the story works, kind of the way. In my head, I'm thinking about it in terms of sort of the power fantasy, the way it like differentiates from something like the druid, or I mean, you could even compare it to like the sorcerer because you're using sort of fire and elemental magic, right? The difference is sort of like almost like the source of power. For the Spiritborn, it's less about like, oh, we're an animal class, and more, it's really like an expression of sort of like their internal like virtues and that sort of thing. So like, hey, like I'm super aggressive, and so that therefore then kind of channels through me and manifests as a jaguar, manifests as fire. Less about like specifically controlling an animal, becoming an animal, or controlling fire, like using the aspect of fire, if that makes sense. It's really more about kind of those themes. And yeah, they're more just kind of like this conduit for it, whereas, the druid is kind of like harmony with nature, becoming a werewolf, having these wolf pets, and like sort of doubling down on that.
Yeah, I think there's enough distinction between like Spiritborn and druids, I think. And I can kind of see what you are referring to with like the harmony aspect, and here's like more this like, fighter kind of thing. So I don't think that the Spiritborn necessarily takes away from the druid, at least from my opinion. Like, I like druid a lot in the current live game, actually. It's probably like my second favorite after rogue. And I guess here we have kind of like, kind of the themes of both a little bit, with like the nature stuff and the fast-paced action. So it's kind of cool, I think.
Awesome.
To be honest, I actually originally thought this would be more of a willpower class and more magic-based. Is that something that you also kind of like explored or have considered, like less martial arts and like more like, I don't know, more magic basically, and spirit effects and stuff like that? Or was it always like going to be like some fighter, from the start basically?
Yeah, I mean, we always wanted to sort of have that core of the martial artist there. Like if anything, the more of the differentiation was like how does it compare versus a dexterity class like the rogue, right? A quick example would be, I think to me the rogue is much more like, dexterity intelligence is kind of like cunning and trickery, whereas like Spiritborn's more like dexterity strength, or like finesse added with like visceral like impacts. And so like willpower it's always been there. Like we did change up, you know, some of the stats and things like that. I think you've got your crit on your strength, that sort of thing. So they're slightly different than other classes. But yeah, willpower has, you know, some place in it. I think at best it kind of relates most to like the centipede. It's got the healing bonus, that sort of thing. So there's some synergy there. And the centipede's also probably the closest you get to sort of more caster-esque fighting, but there is still that sort of core of the martial artist.
How far along are you with the balancing of this class? So Adam was just here and he said balancing is not final, by the way.
Yeah,
and I understand.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, yeah, this is, I think this build's like, you know, a month old or so, and also you're capped at level 30. So yeah, there's several things that you may be different here. Balance is definitely not final. That's a thing we're always working on. And I mean, it's also a thing, you know, just to state that like, ultimately what's going to happen, right, is that Spiritborn is going to go live. It's going to be in your hands as the player base to say like kind of what's working, what's not for you, and our live team then completely takes over the reins. And like you've seen, like over the last year, they've gone back and forth trying to get things where they can be. And so like it really turns into sort of the back and forth of like balance is an ongoing thing that we'll look at.
Okay, so basically right now you are developing a class, but then once it's out, it's actually not really your thing anymore, or what?
Yeah, I mean, we are still there. We sort of help drive like the vision, like explaining, you know, sort of like why maybe this choice was made, try to come up with better like solutions that will like keep class fantasy alive and those sorts of things. But yeah, like we'll then be moving on to sort of like whatever's next after this, and because like once it comes live, like we have that entire live team there.
The expansion 2 class, basically.
I have nothing to say about that.
Okay, that's kind of interesting also to hear how that process works. But yeah, I guess it's going to be like then, you know, like Adam Jackson and like all of the people behind him that will take over basically, and then are responsible for introducing the new items and the balancing. And
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's interesting actually. So, yeah, I'm really excited to see how it's going to be like after launch, because I guess you don't really have like any extensive testing phase, right? It's like you did a lot of in-house testing, I guess, and this is mostly it. So I guess you can already expect that things are going to break.
Yeah, and I mean, especially with a class that has, you know, these many combinations for things, like I have no doubt that you guys will find some crazy combinations that like we couldn't even predict. Like, I mean, that's half the fun, right? Hopefully, you know, it doesn't become like oppressive and it's like, hey, if you're playing this build, you're wrong, right? Like that's usually the first high level balance that we're hoping to hit, is that like everything is at least viable, everything you can play it. But, you know, we'll obviously like act quick if there's, you know, something that's terrible or way too overpowered or like breaking the game in some way. But yeah, I mean, it's an ongoing process.
Yeah, so when you can like, I don't know, just like one-shot anything in the game with like a naked character or so, then I guess it went a bit too far, so.
Sure, yeah.
So I guess you're also gonna main the Spiritborn on when it finally goes live?
I mean, possibly. I mean, I help ship the Rogue, so it's a very special place in my heart. And like, I usually start off with the Rogue just to like get a base for every season and be like, you know, how does this feel different this season? I played a lot of Spiritborn at this point.
So you originally did a lot of work on a Rogue?
Yeah, that was the first class that I was working on.
Nice. Okay. Good job.
Thank you. Yeah, and so I'll probably main Spiritborn. I don't know. I don't know if you can't not main Spiritborn. There will be, you know, other things we announced in our blog, other additions coming to the existing classes too. They're not being fully left out or anything like that. So there's also lots of stuff to look forward to.
Yeah. How much coordination do you have with like the people on the other classes in that sense? So you just said that there's going to be some changes coming. So like, do you also sit down like, okay, with like the Necro team and then the Barb team, and then you say, okay, we're going to do this, and this is kind of like the
we have a whole team. Like we basically have like the live team, and then we have like the dead team. I don't know, the team working on the next expansion, right? So like all those things are kind of working with our team.
Okay, I see. Yeah, that's cool. So I guess you're very excited as well that finally it's coming together and then going live.
Absolutely, yeah. We can't wait to see what you guys do with it. I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Okay. Any other questions, guys, for Bjorn? Bjorn is a legend. Yeah, I mean, I'm like Rogue main. I think I have a lot of in my community that, you know, play Rogue because of me, or, you know, because this is like my builds or something. And yeah, so this is why I said good job. So Actually, interesting question about overpower. So I have not seen anything with overpowers, and that kind of goes well with Gorilla, I feel.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I mean, basically, whenever we sit down to make the class, right, like I mentioned before, like we'll try to think of like different ways to make different stats work, that sort of thing. You know, part of that is trying to make a choice very deliberately about like kind of narrowing down the pool of things that we want you guys to have to worry about with a class. So for instance, we generally try not to give everybody like all like 12 like crowd controls, that sort of thing, right? Spiritborn's got like 3 or 4 of them. And like Overpower and Fortify were two additional stats that we felt had been broadly covered already for various tank specs on other classes that we really wanted to see what we could do kind of without those. And that's part of why we're so much more heavily invested in dodge, in barrier, and the new resolve mechanic. Kind of seeing like what we can do with that. Resolve has some parallels, I think, with Fortify to some extent, but it's kind of almost like an inverted version of Fortify to some extent. And so like yeah, like seeing what we can do with that. But yeah, like Overpower, it's a thing that we're not hooking into specifically for the Spiritborn at the moment, at least. That can always change, that can always improve. There is a mythic unique, I believe, that will give you some overpowers, but I don't necessarily expect that to be like something that's scaling heavily into.
Yeah, I mean, there's always like possibilities, just like make some niche for it, at least through items, for example, right? Like
Absolutely.
That's kind of interesting there.
Yeah, I think there's something. I want to say there might still be a passive in the tree that increases health.
Something happened with our cam. Yeah, wait a minute. So our cam is offline for some reason. What happened there? Let me see. Video capture. Hello? Yeah, I don't know. It just stopped there. I just noticed. I'm not sure what's going on though. But guys can still hear us, right? It's just a cam went offline. So yeah, maybe we can have to check that. But we can just keep talking, I guess, while I'm trying to fix it. Wasn't that a cam moment? Yeah, okay, they hear us. It's just a cam. I'll try to fix it on the side, but we can keep talking. It's fine. Okay. Yeah, but it's kind of cool to hear about, that you actually try to make this distinction with the different classes. And yeah, maybe there's going to be like, stuff that comes in. I guess you're not launching the class with like as many legendaries and uniques as other classes have. There's probably like a bit less, I would imagine. And then to build from there.
Yeah, we're not talking about like specific numbers, but yeah, there is a whole host of them to add. And I mean, I think it's also important to like remember that Spiritborn also gets to benefit from like the entire year's worth of like generics that have been getting added to the game. So those are also all there for it as well.
Yeah, that's true. And that is, for example, this also gives you, like, for example, synergies with Fortify or with Overpower that you could build.
Exactly, yeah.
All right. Anything else? We'll be able to dual wield. Oh yeah, it's actually something I wanted to ask. So what is the decision behind just having two-handed weapon and nothing else?
Yeah, I mean, so for Spiritborn, at least to start off, right, they're starting with, they've actually got 3 weapons. I think I mentioned 2 of them, Glaive, Quarterstaff. The third one is the two-handed polearm, the existing weapon. I believe Barb can use it right now. But yeah, so right now, they're starting off basically either hitting stuff with their fists or hitting stuff with the stick. And so, like, yeah, basically, the way we kind of look at it right now is that like, A, they really want to use these weapons, like it fits very thematically for the animations and things that we're going for. But also, like, when we're looking at sort of the weapons that classes can use and like the number of weapons, that sort of thing, that we usually actually tie that power budget in with like the class mechanic. So almost to some extent, you can kind of think of the Spirit Hall as almost like a third weapon for the Spiritborn to use. And so it's almost like they're sort of wielding the spirits themselves. Recognizing that does like potentially take away a little bit of your agency because like you only can have that two-handed instead of potentially having like 2 one-handeds. But we think that there's enough ability to sort of like spread and connect items using the abilities that they have to sort of like connect skill tags to things and do a lot of skill tag manipulation. So yeah, but I mean, we're definitely open to feedback and we'll be, looking forward to seeing if, maybe we add new weapons in the future.
Yeah. Okay, we have someone here trying to fix our cam. Hello. Yeah, it just kind of turned off. I'm not sure what's going on. But yeah, the cam turned off, so I don't know. Okay, we're trying to fix it, guys. But it's fine, we're going to keep going here. One day I hope to meet Bjorn and the rest of the dev team. I mean, if there's gonna be a BlizzCon again or something, I guess then we might see the devs running around there. But I'm not sure if was there actually something like that on the BlizzCon last time, where like was there like some meet and greet with the devs? I met some like running around and like like they came up to me as well when I was streaming or something. But yeah. I'm not sure. Do you wanna check something here with the cam?
Just I want to see if it's red.
No, it's like it doesn't. Oh wait, did it turn on again now? Oh, it seems like we're back. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, move it a little bit so we have beyond as well.
Awesome.
Okay. It's on. Okay, it's working. Thank you.
Cool.
All right, we're back. We're so back. Okay. And also gonna look on the last preset here. I don't think I have that much more time, so the last one is the Jaguar. Let's do that one.
Nice.
While we're talking. Yeah,
everybody's favorite. Yeah.
No, not mine actually. I like I like the eagle and the centipede the most.
There you go.
And yeah, I mean Jaguar is cool and all, and I kind of like I combined them right away. But it's like I like the combinations of the poisons on centipede a lot. Like with the stinger, I like the design of stinger because you poison everything and then you just hit on the ground and everything around you just dies, and I love that. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that was a fun one to make, and kind of see the various possibilities you can hit with that is really interesting.
Chet is asking, what is your favorite build that you have tried so far?
I think I said like Jaguar Eagle is kind of my go-to. I mean, it's probably the most similar to Rogue. Kind of you got a little bit of melee, a little bit of range, and kind of that speed that you're looking for, kind of mixed in with a little bit more finesse. But honestly, like sleeper hit for me is also like heavy centipede gorilla. Like I think it's like one of the more like unique kind of feeling ones you can go for, like mixing like high tank, high sustain with like a lot of different sort of like attrition play styles of like thorns and poisons and sort of all these things going on, and sort of like the way you can manipulate the battlefield. It like plays much more differently like than you kind of like first expect, and it's like it honestly allows you to like go from being sort of like this like target marking like high damage class to almost just like pulling huge mobs and kind of just like destroying them over time. So I don't know, that's kind of like a fun little like extra one for me, I guess.
Okay, I guess everyone on the team has their favorites and they're trying to like bring their ideas.
Yes. Yeah, everybody always argues about kind of which one is the best.
Okay. So people are asking, what about the aspect advantage that barbarians will have? Is that something that you also considered? Like, okay, barbs, they have the 4 weapons, and like I like deliberately designing the aspects to be like more powerful, for example, or like trying to like close the gap in some other ways.
Yeah, I can't speak specifically about the work going on Barb, but yeah, for Spiritborn, kind of like I was mentioning, like really the largest scaling sort of like potential and power that we're looking for is sort of the skill tag manipulation, like the ability to really like combine and customize your build with that. I think the possibility space is like pretty decent, and really lets you kind of like pick and choose which things you want to combine together, which is where some of the scary possibility space maybe comes in for balancing and things. But like being able to like take, I think there's like an aspect that lets you like scale up your like armor into damage and something like that, and being able to like put that onto like any kind of attack, as opposed to being like locked into like, oh, I can only use that with like these 4 like gorilla skills or something like that, or even like stuff like Ravager where it can kind of transform like any skill into a damage dealing skill. There's stuff like that like I think there's a lot of kind of like mixing that can happen, and it becomes multiplicative relatively quickly. So we'll see like how that balances out.
Yeah, I saw a question there, or like as a comment. If you don't get hoarded by lethal fetish shits, I'll be upset. That's actually what happened to me earlier. Like I logged in and it's just like I was talking with just the cam, not the game, before the live stream. I was just like having the background music because it was nice. And then there was like fetishes spawning in on me.
Nice. There you go.
Yeah, and they don't stop coming, man. It's crazy, guys. So yeah, they do exist actually. I mean,
you gotta kill those things.
You can't make a jungle without the fetishes, of course. So.
Exactly.
Okay, what else here, guys? We've thought about spider or snake when brainstorming the Spirit Guardians.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, we went through a lot of different brainstorms with them. You know, the key was to really think about like how can we get like as much variety in there. We didn't want them to like all be like birds or something like that, right? And so like bugs, snakes, reptiles, all over the place. Ultimately, the 4 we landed on are the ones that we're happy with, though.
What about shark?
Shark. Maybe if we get closer to the ocean.
Yeah, we need like an underwater expansion.
There you go.
We need like Bashir from WoW or something. Hello?
Sure.
Oh, you wanna come here? Yeah. Okay.